the John Pertwee era has a very specific flavour, I feel, when it comes to storytelling. Season 7, even more so. And so when a story like Intelligence for War from Big Finish comes along, this huge seven-parter, it has a lot to live up to, doesn't it? Especially
Yes.
for you in particular being a
Yo,
huge Pertwee buff.
this is my catnip, you know?
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
it's something we've been looking forward to since the moment it was announced.
yeah, because season 7, there is no other season like it. There's
Mm.
elements throughout modern Doctor Who where Russell, especially series 1, took influence, but
Yeah,
there's a
particularly
grit.
Spearhead from space, isn't there?
Yes,
Yeah.
there's this real gritty edge to it.
I think ushered in by Jarek Sherwin, really wanting to
Yeah,
bring it down to earth, make it more like Quatermass. And that certainly felt in season 7. And then come season 8, it's softened off a bit as Barry Letts and Terrence Dicks really get to take over and shape their own wonderful vision for the show. But there's always something special about season 7.
I think because it's four stories, four
Mm,
very different flavors, and arguably one of the strongest, if not the strongest, season in classic Doctor Who.
yeah, it's a very
There's
solid run of episodes.
there's a lot of pressure for whenever any expanded media, whether that be Big Finish books, to get
Mm,
it right, because there's such a high quality, you don't want it to sort of lessen it. And
yeah.
so far with Big Finish releases, we've had, in terms of season 7 full cast ones, we had the Unzal incursion, which was
Mm,
an amazing story, probably my favorite from that box set. Then,
yeah. Volume 7, that was of the
yeah,
third
Volume
Doctor
7,
Ventures.
which is very much Havoc, all guns blazing. Brilliant, brilliant. You wonder how do these action sequences work on audio? They work superb.
Mm,
Last year we had the Annihilators, both of our favorite releases of last year.
yeah, I'd say so. That's a very, very strong release, written by Nicholas Briggs. You got the second Doctor sort of gate crashing it a bit, which
Hmm.
sort of worried us at first. But then once we were listening, we're like, oh no, this works very well. That was wonderful. Uh, but here we've now got a seven-parter without that
Yeah.
feels very true to the era. And I think Big Finish have been trying even harder with the third Doctor Adventures to really recreate the era, not in a derivative way, but just with the music, which Nicholas
Oh,
Briggs does
yeah.
himself wonderfully.
There's so
Yeah,
many
and
little bits of music where you think that belongs in that story. Like, there's a lot of spearhead music within it, especially like the sort of Nestine recall sound within it. I
yeah,
got
you can
within this and a lot of
feel
ambassadors
the
with
influences. Mm.
how the scenes transition, you get sort of the same sort of similar motif that you have in ambassadors. Yeah, I think there's all Inferno with the more sort of mindscapey elements.
Mm.
The only bit of music that's kind of missing is Silurians for obvious reasons.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, Luke Pietnik on the sound design for this as well. So I suppose a lot of that comes under him as well, doing a
Yes.
brilliant job there. Him and Nick working together wonderfully to create a proper soundscape for these season 7 stories. You've got the sort of mid credits opening sequence from Ambassadors.
Without the
They've
twang.
taken, yeah, without the twang in these ones. They kept the twang in Unzal incursion. Here it is just, you have half your opening titles, then your reprise, and then the little extra bit of titles where, you'd have your story, name, writer, and then your episode number,
Hmm.
if you're imagining all that out in your head as it comes
Which you
along.
are, because you're a Doctor Who
Mm.
fan.
Yeah, and especially with how this really it recreates this era, you're invited to imagine it as it would have been in the 70s, aren't you?
Hmm.
And I think one of the highest praises we've personally given these stories so far, Annihilators and Zala Incursion, is you can hear the film grain.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
I think you
comes
get it
into
with this
this
one.
one. Yeah,
I
I was
think you
going to
get it.
ask, do you get it? I
I think
think
you
you do.
do.
I think slightly less so than the others. I think there's a different kind of grit to this one. It's going much more espionage based, isn't it? Because
Yes.
the idea for this that Nick Briggs gave to Eddie Robson, the writer, was just, center it on Liz. I don't remember whether it's him who said have Liz go on the run for like, espionage against UNIT, or whether that came from Eddie Robson. But, it's wonderful how she is very much the heart and soul of this story, really. And I think it makes for a very interesting tale that is hard to talk about because, with it having all these twists and turns, we don't want to go spoiling any of that out there now. But
there's a lot of who can you trust?
What can you trust as well?
Yeah, it's a bit of a psychological. I wouldn't say horror, but it's a psychological one. It's one what's there to play mind games with you.
Yeah, and Liz certainly feels the brunt of that. She's on her own for a fair amount of this, and it does sometimes feel like she's the star of the show, really.
Oh, yes.
She's not just a damsel in distress. She gets to really take some agency and, really drive the story forward, which is wonderful.
We have Liz going back to her roots, really, isn't it, in Cambridge?
Yeah.
And it's how it's implemented in the story is you have little elements in episode 1 where she's thinking, UNIT was only meant to be a stopgap. I'm meant to be back in case. So it's nice, but it's sort of setting these pieces up on the board ready for the bigger picture within the story. Yeah,
she's being pulled between two worlds, isn't she?
Yes.
Yeah, but she doesn't necessarily want to leave UNIT just yet because she's worried she could miss something amazing that's coming right around the corner for her. And so we do kick off with a little investigation into something that feels almost Invasion of the Dinosaurs. A Nazi soldier has turned up in a pub in the town of Huncleaf in Norfolk. And so the Third Doctor's a bit hopeful that he might be able to use this information, if there is time travel at work, to help repair the TARDIS even. And so that's sort of the jumping on point for this story. And it sort of also gave me Mind of Evil vibes in that it's the Doctor and companion off investigating something that the Doctor's very into, while the Brigadier's dealing with something else. Mind of Evil, it was an international peace conference. Here, you have an agent from the mysterious Pinpoint Division turning up to question the loyalty of Liz Shaw. And it's wonderful how these two storylines can dive out of each other as the story goes on before coming together towards the end. There's a lot of scope to this story, and you're bouncing around between a few places, aren't you? You've got Huncleaf, UNIT HQ, Pinpoint Division HQ, Soho, Cambridge. You're definitely kept on the move, and I think that really helps to flesh out this story as a 7-parter.
Well, you need it, for a 7-parter, and this is another beautiful thing about this story. It might seem daunting being 7 parts in audio, but the parts are so bite-sized. We said this about Annihilators, but this one even more so, with the longest episode being 24 minutes, but the rest are 19 minutes.
They hover around 22 minutes, I think, and then the shortest one, episode 2, is 19. I mean, Nick Briggs even admitted himself, the cheeky little trick to getting a 7-parter is that they, deliberately make the first 3 episodes shorter so that they fit on one disc, which, it's nice as well because that allows you to really dive into the story.
It plays a psychological trick on yourself,
Yeah, you're going, I could squeeze one more episode in tonight. It's only another 20 minutes. That'll be fine. And before you know it, you're 4 parts deep into it because it does really grab you and pull you along, I feel. And you want to know where this mystery is going. Who can you trust and such? I think that all plays into this very well.
I mean, there's some very unexpected sort of twists and turns, especially at the beginning, because it doesn't feel very like a conventional Third Doctor story, and you forget about that plot point, and then that plot point comes back, and how it's weaved into the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's one you have to pay attention to. And admittedly, I did get confused as to which character was which at times, because you're
Yes.
often introduced to them like out of order. You don't necessarily know what role they're going to play in the story. And then Liz or the Doctor will sort of bump into them later. And then sometimes you're wondering, oh wait, was that character? Oh no, that was a different character. It always feels like maybe there was one too many characters at times. Like, I think a character like Lincoln, who's Liz Shaw's friend from Cambridge, sort of falls through the cracks a bit and doesn't end up with much to do going into the story. But yeah, certainly I feel like that's something that can be eased by multiple listenings when you know all those characters then. You know why they're being introduced earlier and what part they'll play later on in the story. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that's a huge negative I have against this, but it's certainly something that I suppose tripped me up once or twice on this first listen.
Yeah, I think the negative I have, which I guess isn't really a negative, the ending just feels a bit abrupt, a bit like Ambassadors of Death, really. You feel like...
Still true to the era.
Yeah, it's very true to the era. It just feels very... Okay, we've reached the end.
Yeah, it feels ironic to say for a 7-parter, but in a way it does feel a bit too short, like it could have done with a bit more fleshing out in the later parts, because, as things are really getting going around part 5, and you're like, this is what it's about now. Not to say that, it was spinning its wheels before that or anything. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff and stuff to really sink your teeth into in those first few parts, but just by the nature of it having this mystery, once it finally revealed what it is about, you're almost worried, like, are we going to have enough time to tell this properly? And I think you do, but I wouldn't have minded more, Yeah,
but could have had like an extra part. I'll happily have taken it.
I love being taken on a journey by stories, and that's something that I really like about the longer form storytelling that Big Finish is able to do with these, 6-7-parters.
It's the joy of the relaunch, isn't it?
And like that feeling of, you look back to Huncleaf from the start of the story and think, that feels like ages ago now, but not in a bad way. It's like, because you've been taken on such a journey with these characters, you feel like Liz does in a way, in that, her life's been turned upside down in this as she's going through this story. And, that mad idea that, this regular unit investigation built so long ago, but it was just a couple of days. That's something I really appreciate. And I mean, again, don't be daunted by the 7 parts. I think Big Finish have got that down to a T. And, it's where the strength lies for the Third Doctor Adventures range, because we've made no secret that we're not too keen on the first Third Doctor Adventures release of 2023, Return of Jo Jones. That was 3 2-parters. And all of those 2-parters honestly felt like more of a slog to get through than this did by far.
Yeah. I think the Third Doctor just works better in the long form storytelling, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. And it's wonderful that we are able to push that boat out even more now with 7-parters.
Yeah, this one can be added to the pantheon of great season 7 Doctor Who stories, which is everything, really.
I mean, we haven't even mentioned the Doctor or the Brigadier in this as well.
This
They're
plays
great.
I think especially for the Doctor, I think Eddie Robson gets to play with a Third Doctor side we don't really get to see until sort of the Green Death, more of the sort of comic nature, I would say, of the Third Doctor.
But it doesn't stand out in a season 7 story. I don't think it works well.
No, because there are elements in the early season where you do get that sort of more comedic nature with the Third Doctor, like Spared from Space. And
I like the Third Doctor and the Brigadier working together to hunt down this creature early on as well.
That feels very Silurians.
There's a wonderful camaraderie between the two here.
Yeah.
The way they work together, I think it's wonderful to see that. And John Coleshaw and Tim Trelaw play off each other really well.
It's the one-liners where it's like, if I had Liz,
yeah. And I mean, it feels like they're almost finishing each other's sentences at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna get the brig passing the test tubes.
Hmm. And again, they're all recasts here, so that's sort of like the other reason that Big Finish has to make this feel even more authentic to almost offset that a little bit.
Hmm.
But they all do such a wonderful job. They feel like the characters; they are living and breathing it. They all got to record this together as well,
I think
which
it
just
shows.
added to that family feel. Yeah, it does show, and it's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, what would you give it out of 10?
I am gonna give it 8.5 out of 10.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna go an 8, just slightly below, but I do think it's well worth anyone's time.
Yeah, I think it's not a season 7 story you expect. I think I kind of miss a bit of Havoc action within it. You kind of expect a few more set pieces, but again, this is going for something more of a psychological mind game espionage, which I think's quite refreshing.
You don't always want your stories to all be the same, do you? So
No.
it's nice to have something different there. Yeah.
And I think in sort of the grand scheme of things, I think this one will probably benefit a re-listen, and we'll probably love it even more. And it will stand out. Like, I feel like we've got our own sort of mini season 7 at Big Finish now, where we can marathon.
Yeah, they're building one up, aren't they? They're only one 7-parter away from matching that in the third Doctor Adventures.
Yeah, hopefully we can get that soon. Because there's something quite special about a 7-part Big Finish. And it
feels like an event.
It feels like Christmas. It's that sort of excitement of, right, I'm just going to settle down and this is me now.
Yeah. I mean, I would say if you are interested in season 7 at Big Finish, you want more of that very special era. You've not picked up any yet. I'd say start with the Annihilators instead.
Yeah.
I think that is the stronger of these two. But if you're coming to this review having already listened to the Annihilators, you're wondering, is this worth my time as well? Definitely is. You won't be disappointed. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time.
Yeah, it is a real joy to dip our toes back into the world of the Third Doctor, because it feels like such a long time since February.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we've had little hints of him through Once and Future, but to have a full-on Third Doctor story again is marvellous. And getting the Brigadier back as well, and Liz, the party's really getting started now.
And hopefully we can get some more, because we love it. We love it.
We really do. Roll on the next Third Doctor adventure. That's what I say.
Yeah, is that February?
Yeah, looks like it.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot to look forward to.
Pick up Intelligence for War if you are interested, or Annihilators if you have not dived into any.
Third Doctor Volume 7 as well. That's a great, probably my favourite of the range, actually.
Oh, that is a good jumping on point for the Third Doctor adventures there, because you get your season 7 story and your brilliant season 11 story as well. Yeah.
Just check out the whole range. It's Big Finish's Jewel of the Crown. Like it is the star range for me. And that's
a bit
not
shaky with Return of Joe Jones, but I think it's proved itself once again. It's proved that was just a fluke, and it's a strong range overall.
So I think that pretty much concludes Intelligence for War as best we can without spoiling the release. One thing we forgot to mention is if you're expecting the Great Intelligence, you're not getting it.
Yeah, that was something that was teased a bit by Big Finish at times in the marketing. But yeah, don't go into this expecting any Yetis or the Great Intelligence to be involved, because they're not. The intelligence in the title has a different meaning.
Yes.
So yeah, just don't want to set up any false hopes there for anyone. But yeah, it's well worth it without them within the story. So,
yeah, it's a very different type of intelligence. More dangerous, you could say.
Perhaps indeed.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you everyone for watching this review. We'll be back for probably another Big Finish review or some other Big Finish related video, or just Doctor in general. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, because it really does help us out. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Take care, everyone.